You're listening to the Champ Off-Road Podcast, presented by Amsoil. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Champ Off-Road Podcast, presented by Amsoil. Whether you need vehicle maintenance supplies for your summer toys or you are already preparing for winter, head on over to amsoil.com to find what you are looking for. Once you put $50 worth of products in your cart, use the code FREESHIPSNOX to earn free shipping on your order. Once again, that's FREESHIP, SNOX, at checkout. Now let's get started with the show.
On that note, this past season at Amsoil Championship Snowcross, fans were able to sign up to enter to win the grand prize that was a 2019 Polaris General. And we are announcing the winner later on in this podcast, so stay tuned. Well, welcome to the Champ Off-Road Podcast presented by Amsoil. I'm Haley Shanley, joined by Matt Skubik, and our guest today, Hot Rod, Rodney Vaneperen. Rodney, what's going on? Well, welcome to the Champ Off-Road Podcast presented by Amsoil. I'm Haley Shanley and Matt Skubik, your hosts, and joining us today, Hot Rod, Rodney Vaneperen. Rodney, what's going on today?
Not much, just another day at work here selling Yamaha UTVs.
Nice, right on. Have you gotten out to practice much yourself or even go for a joyride?
We've been doing a little bit of trail riding with some of the guys, Johnny and CJ and Luke from Beyond Redline. I haven't gotten out testing yet. We're still building new cars. I got my son Owen out testing. He tested over at the Lena track, I think twice already, and a couple other places. So keep getting him testing, but I don't seem to get any track time.
What about on now you're a motocross rider. Have you gotten much time on two wheels?
Well, that's another problem, I guess. My kid is growing like a weed, and he took my new dirt bike that I got late last summer that I was going to try and ride, and because he grew out of his 85, so he took my Yamaha 250F, and I got another one ordered, but it's hard to ride when he takes my dirt bike all the time.
No kidding.
So honestly, no, I haven't really ridden lately.
Oh, right on.
Now, Rodney, speaking of your son, he's actually jumping into the pro stock side-by-side class, and you're obviously going to be running in the pro mod side-by-side class. Can you tell us how awesome that is to be able to share these memories with your son?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, I've grew up around Johnny Grease my whole life and watching that whole scenario play out in front of me. And, man, it was one thing to say, oh, I can't wait. Hopefully my kid wants to race and race off-road and do that kind of stuff. And then, you watch that happen with Johnny and CJ, and then all of a sudden you start seeing them line up on the line. And it's like, that was like the next goal. It's like, man, hopefully someday I'm on the same track as him. And now it's happened a couple times already. So it's pretty cool to watch that whole thing play out. And you can't describe it when you're going up to the line getting ready for a race and you and your son are in the same race. It's pretty intense.
Do you see a lot of yourself in him?
Somewhat sometimes, but I'm going to refer back to Johnny and CJ again. It's kind of funny because I can be a little bit like Johnny, or I can be a loose cannon and anything can happen at any given time. And Owen seems to be a little more calculated like CJ for some reason. I don't know where they get that from. I wish probably a blend between the two of us would be the best case scenario, but no, he seems to be more reserved like CJ and more calculated, a little unlike me or Johnny.
Now you talked about owning a Powersports dealership. Can you tell us what the name of that dealership is and how business has been going for you with all the the coronavirus stuff going on currently? Yeah,
we're a Yamaha only dealership here, and obviously the UTV market pretty much exploded. Snowmobiles have just been decent for us, lately, and ATVs have been decent, watercraft have been decent, but the UTV market has pretty much exploded for us. And then when this whole pandemic came down, I mean, to be honest with you, I was freaking out like everybody else. I didn't know what was going to happen. I went, man, if I got to lock my doors here for a couple months, we got a big, huge building out on a major highway here between Appleton and Green Bay, and obviously there's a lot of overhead, so there's definitely some sleepless nights, and we were pretty nervous. We laid off a bunch of people and went with a skeleton crew, and for about a week or so, it slowed down, and the second week, it started getting busier. By the third week, it was pretty crazy, and by the fourth week, it was to be honest with you, we had the busiest month and a half we've ever had in 15 years of business, and I'm not quite 100% sure what to attribute it to, but we're just kind of rolling with it, taking it as it comes, and hopefully it keeps up because, it sounds like all of motorsports industry seems to be doing pretty strong in this weird environment we have going on right now.
Well, that's great to hear.
Absolutely. It's good to hear things are going well on that front, because these are most certainly scary times. Now, in 2020, we've seen you race the Ice Oval in Eagle River. Of course, last year you raced some side-by-side sports, Midwest Short Course League. You raced Championship UTV at Heydays. What does your schedule look like in 2020? I know that, aside from Champ Off-Road, there might be some events up in the air, but what does your schedule look like?
I think what we have contracted out for everything is Champ Off-Road and side-by-side sports, and really them are, if you're racing UTVs, I think them are definitely the two premier series that sponsors want to see us involved in. We'll hit some one-off stuff, but, with a couple cancellations early here, I think it's going to get really bottlenecked up, obviously, mid to late summer. So we're just going to focus on them two things and then see what happens from there. It seems like, we get all nervous about all these races coming up, and once we get through them, we can't wait for it to get over, and then it literally is over for about a week or two, and I got Johnny texting and calling me going, hey, there's a race down south somewhere. So that's usually how the fall comes out and goes down around here anyway.
Well, knowing you're probably not going to turn down an opportunity when someone calls you up and says, hey, let's go to a race, huh?
No, that's pretty hard to, especially when you got a 13-year-old son begging you and pulling on your arm saying, let's go. And we'll get ready. I've been doing the King of Hammers with Johnny every year, riding co-pilot with him, and I have an absolute blast doing that. So that's in, I believe, January or probably February, I think. So, we only got a little bit of time to play around here in the cold weather and snow, and then we're doing that already, and then it's already time to think about spring. So it's pretty much full year-round UTV focused, really, for the most part.
Now, before you even got into side-by-side racing, you used to race a Pro 2. Can you bring us back to those days?
Well, I actually started way back in the day racing Pro Light. It must have been about, I'm going to guess about 2003. I had a guy that wanted to own a Pro Light and wanted a driver, so I raised my hand, said, heck yeah, I'm in. And that was back in the four-cylinder days, when it was really difficult to keep motors in them things. And we ran the last two races of 1 year. And then the following year we won the first race of the year. And that was back when Kincaid and Huseman and Kyle LeDuc, all them guys, Chad Hort, everybody was in that class back then. And we won the first round of the series. And then we started blowing motors and no spares and just kind of turned into a disaster. So that was like a one and done. So I could not wait to get back into off-road racing one way or another. And then, I bought a super buggy in about 2015. We raced that for 2 years. We jumped in Pro 2. Race that for a year, and that was right around the time when the UTV thing was kind of exploding, really. And Yamaha came out with the YXZ, which was a true sport machine, and we had an absolute blast in the Pro 2. But you sit here and look at what we sell and what we do out of here, and the YXZ was just sitting there, and it was like, man, I think this is something we need to get involved in. And we have so much fun, just running all over the country, and it's a little more opened up of doing different things and racing in the winter and stuff like that. So it really could not have worked out better, just the way the whole scenario played out.
Take me back to, let's talk about last year in particular, 2019. How happy are you with the way things transpired with your season?
Not real happy at all. I mean, it's kind of funny when the Pro Mod class first started out, the Can-Ams were turbos and we couldn't run a turbo. I think we had a little one up on them. I think the NA motor was really competitive and we were racing against some guys in 2017, and I think we were a little bit faster. We had some bad luck, didn't win the championship in 17. Then came out in 18, and them turbos just kept getting better and better. And, I think the speed was pretty even in 18. We ended up winning the championship because Kyle had one bad luck race. And then in 19, I think the turbos kept getting better, and I think we were at our ceiling with the NA. We just couldn't get anything more out of it. We were lighter than them guys, but just getting beat down on horsepower, in my opinion. So in 19, we didn't even get a win at all in Pro Mod class in 19. So that was very frustrating, to say the least. So it was really cool that Champ got together and came up with a set of rules that I really think is going to make this class be real competitive with multiple manufacturers. So, yeah, to make a long story short, we definitely weren't happy. I mean, yeah, you look back at it and go second place in Pro Mod sounds good, but, we're competitive racers and everybody wants to win. And it's great racing against someone like Kyle. I mean, you never have to worry about the way he races. He's a great competitor, and unfortunately, he's a heck of a nice guy. I wish he wasn't. It'd be a lot better to not like him. But yeah, we're not happy with it, and we're going to come out. I think we're going to be a lot more competitive with this turbo. Only time will tell, but we're pretty excited for this year.
Then to dig a little deeper in that, what is it exactly that you guys need to do to be competitive and honestly maybe even beat Kyle Chady in his Can-Am this summer?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I hate to just go back to horsepower, but we were down quite a bit, and I don't know. I mean, the last 3 years in Pro Mod class, I lost the championship in 17 by 1 DNF. In 2018, Kyle lost the championship by 1 DNF. In 2019, I lost it again by 1 DNF. So to say that class isn't competitive, it's crazy. I mean, the last 3 years was 1 DNF decided championships, But I think the turbo is going to really level out the playing field, and it's going to be about finishing races. I mean, yeah, you're going to want to win races and you're going to want to be the fastest guy, but I think it's going to come down to, again, one DNF could decide the championship, and you got to keep that in the back of your mind when you're going for a win and no one wants to let off and you're throwing caution to the wind, because that one flat tire, that 1D in the last 3 years is what decided the championship. So yeah, I think we got a good chance. I think a better chance than last year for sure. But until you put the cars on the track and line up alongside of each other, it's nothing but a guessing game.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've raced Dirt City, and this track is new to the Midwest Short Course circuit. Of course, this year with Championship Off-Road, we're going to pay a visit there. What can fans expect from that track as far as the racing goes?
Well, we get spoiled a little bit with Crandon and Bark River and ERX. Are just such big, fun, flowy tracks where the corners are super wide and you're just drifting next to each other, and it's all about rhythm and flow. Lena's Dirt City is pretty much the opposite. It's like an old school chopped up motocross track. I mean, you coming in the corners and there's ruts and it's throwing you sideways. It ain't a big drift fest. It ain't super flowy. The corners aren't as tight. It's the Talladega of off-road. It's going to be a little bumping and grinding, and you almost got to gut it out. There ain't a lot of finesse involved in racing that track. So I think with the motocross background, it definitely helps the motocrossers. That's kind of old school motocross. I feel like that track caters towards that a little bit. I'm excited for that change of pace and to throw the venue into a bunch of tracks that are, series that has a little bit, they're faster, wide open tracks. So I think that tighter track is going to add real excitement to it.
So out of the 4 racetracks, which one is your favorite and why?
Oh man, geez, that's a good call. ERX is tough to say that track isn't fun. I mean, that thing's an absolute blast. Crandon, I could go through this whole scenario and go through each one and say what's so awesome about everyone. I don't know. I guess to make a long story short, probably ERX. That thing's fun, but Bark River too is just long and flowy, and the big jumps and stuff. So, yeah, if you're gonna hammer me down, I'm gonna go with ERX.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rodney, where do you see the future of side-by-side racing going?
Wow, that's a pretty good question. What's funny is, I mean, even you look at desert racing and all that stuff, and you look at some of these vehicles that are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to build, and I'm not saying a UTV is anywhere near some of them really cool vehicles, but you're watching it bridge the gap. I mean, you're looking at lap time on Pro Mod UTV and Pro Stock UTV compared to some of the big trucks. And I'm never going to stand here and say it's as cool to watch a UTV go around Crandon as it is a Pro 4, because that's never going to happen. But you got to open your eyes a little bit to the growth of the sport. And the biggest thing I think UTVs are going to do is bring more spectators and fill the class. We need Pro 4, Pro 2, and Pro Light. I mean, them are the funnest classes to watch. I think the UTV is going to fill them classes and help fill them, but it's a feeder ground, and the sky is the limit. I mean, with UTVs, I mean, what we've seen in growth in the last 3 years, I mean, I don't know exact numbers, but I don't know that in any form of motorsports has seen the percentage growth that UTV has seen in the last 3 to 4 years. I could be wrong, but again, I think it goes back to we're bridging that gap between vehicles that are hundreds of thousands of dollars unable to purchase for 99% of the people out there. Now you're able to go buy a UTV and have pretty much as fun as what you can have in one of them and go race a desert or race short course and take that same machine trail riding. So the versatility with it is unbelievable.
Well, and that's what's pretty cool about the whole side-by-side racing. It's the old statement is true. What wins on Sunday sells on Monday, and hopefully that happens for you over at your dealership.
Yeah, I mean, we're Yamaha and Yamaha only. We're right now, we rank between, I'd say, number 1 and number 3 in the U.S. in overall UTV sales for Yamaha.
Awesome.
And the Yamaha YXZ, I believe last time I checked, we were number 1 in sales in the whole U.S. on Yamaha UTV sales, or YXZ sales. But the weird thing is everybody thinks we're some huge dealership. I mean, it's me and my dad and a couple employees. I mean, we're not this 20, 30, 40 employee dealership. So, I mean, it's definitely a personalized atmosphere. We're really not looking to get much bigger than we are. We know 90% of our customers by first name. So it's really been exciting. I mean, I've been racing my whole life since 8 years old, racing motocross and running the Lorettalands Amateur Nationals and a little bit of pro stuff. And I've had a blast my whole life, but this is the first time where it's like, man, what we do for work is also what we do for play. And it's pretty priceless, to be honest with you.
Well, I've got one more question for you, Rodney. Obviously, you've been racing for a very, very long time, like you just stated. What have you had to give up so you could be successful and make this racing your career?
What's kind of funny is when I got into racing, I was young. I started out 8 years old, and my parents took us all over the place, and we were all over the country. And, I hate to say it, by the time I was 16, 17 years old, I mean, I was burnt out on racing, and I wanted to hang out with my buddies and go do that, and I did that till I got out of high school, until I was about 20, 22 years old, and then I went, you know what, I want to go racing again. And I think if I want to ever miss that gap in there, I don't think I'd have the love for it I do now. And I don't know, right now our life revolves around it. Luckily enough, my wife just she kind of fell into it, not by choice, but she's grown to love it, or at least she acts like she does. And even my little guy, he's in basketball, football and stuff, but he's not a racer. But they come to the races, they put a smile on their face, they help us out and do everything they can. Yeah, to say it ain't a full-time job between this business and racing, it completely engulfs our life. But I wouldn't change it for anything, especially while the kids are growing up. And we don't, especially with Owen, we don't push them. At any given time, if he don't want to do it, I'll happily, he can call it quits, but it sure don't look like that anytime soon. But I'll probably keep going as long as I can, or as long as he wants to, and keep it rolling.
Well, to close up the podcast here, we have a little game. We're going to play this or that. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, 5 to be exact, and you'll just let me know one or the other. So
okay.
To start things off, Crandon cheese curds or Crandon's chicken wings?
Cheese curds.
Fair enough. Supercross or the outdoors?
Oh, let's go with Supercross.
Good choice. 2-stroke or 4-stroke?
2-stroke for sure.
Felt that. Johnny and CJ. It is, it's, you never know who's going to come out on top in the trucks, but in a foot race, who's going to win?
Johnny, just because he's more competitive. He don't give up anything. So. And CJ's done a lot of winning, and he's got a lot of winning to come. So I'm going to root for Johnny to win one more on him.
And last, which era was cooler in motocross, the 90s or today?
Oh, man. Probably the 90s. I mean, Bradshaw and Stanton and O'Mara and Hanna and, oh, my God, that whole group. But that's tough because it's ultra competitive now. But, man, me and Johnny always send videos back and forth of some of the old races, and you could just get glued to them things. It's impressive. So I'm going 90s.
Yes, I would have to agree with you there. Solid. Well, Rodney, thank you so much for your time today. It was great chatting with you, and we look forward to seeing you in, man, just a few weeks here.
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate everything.
That does it for this week's Champ Off-Road podcast presented by AMSOIL. And without further ado, a big congratulations goes out to our grand prize winner who is taking home that beautiful 2019 Polaris General. Her name is Billy Connolly. Billy had registered at the AMSOIL booth at the Tyson Snowcross National this past winter in Dubuque, Iowa. So congratulations, Billy Connolly. We will get in touch with you and enjoy the new hot rod.
Thanks for listening to the Champ Off-Road podcast presented by AMSOIL.